gathered friends, listen again to our legend of Zelda. Hello everyone, Artemu the Violet Wizard here, and today we are jumping back into a game that I had previously played on my Twitch channel, but I've really been wanting to do one here on YouTube. This is The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past Randomizer. This is a very special challenge among the Zelda community that's become very popular in the last couple of years. And I'm very excited just to dive right into this and just show off everything we have in store with this adventure. Yeah, we previously uploaded the VODs from my Twitch playthrough onto this channel, but I really wanted to redo this run because I really liked the old run I did from all those years ago, but there are a few technical issues with that couple of stream sessions, so just wanted to do a fresh playthrough that I feel would be able to stand up to the test of time much more compared to that old session. So yeah, but let us jump right into this. So in order to do a Legend of Zelda Randomizer, there is a website that you could access simply by searching it up on the Google, and it should tell you all you need to know in order to set up this kind of challenge run. Just getting all of the software necessary for that. And yeah, it's a pretty fun process you can do with that. And one of the neat things with this challenge is that you have the ability to completely they offer like a bunch of different character options that you can play as, which is very cool. Like, for instance, when I first streamed this game back on Twitch, I was playing as Mega Man X. But for this one, I have a different character in mind. So let's go ahead and enter our name, which is obviously going to be pretty important here. Completely messed up. Yep, just able to... No. Okay, don't know why that space there. Seems a bit odd. Okay, that is a little odd, but I guess we can just... we'll just have to go with it. Alright, so yeah, for this run, we're going to be playing as a classic character throughout the Zelda series, which is the Wizrobe. It's a type of sorcerer enemy that occurs quite often in the series. Specifically want to go with this character because it matches my online persona pretty nicely. Alright, but with that said, let us jump right into this game. Oh boy, this should be a fun one. Let's begin. I'm not even going to translate what that guy was saying. So yeah, we start off our adventure here in the home of Link. So, in this run, we're going to be able to accomplish quite a bit here as our little Wizrobe buddy. As you can see here, we have a pretty empty inventory here. We're going to need to scour this entire land to be able to get everything we need to finish the adventure. So if we check this chest here, we got some arrows. Yeah, expect to see plenty of those as we're going through this adventure. So yeah, the gimmick with the randomizer here is that every single item that you're able to obtain on the overworld from chests dropped from boss enemies is completely changed with another item. They have all been swapped with their general locations. So there is no easy route we're going to be able to go through this game. We just need to tackle it in as optimal a route as possible by just exploring the entire world and trying to open as many chests as we can to try and see what we're able to obtain here. Obviously, we're in the intro of The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, which, if you ask me, is definitely one of the best intros of any of these classic games. Just, it's a phenomenal sequence. Try to go to the gate here. No lonks allowed. I'm not a lonk, I'm a whiz, Robe. Got this big rock here we can't do anything about. Yeah, not until we get another item will we be able to do anything with that. But if we push open... well, we can throw that bush there, opening the way down here into the sewers below the castle. Hi, Uncle. Wow! That is quite the item to receive from our uncle. I believe he's guaranteed to give us at least one item that would be useful to us here. And in this case, we got the Fire Rod. That is a pretty good item. So that is an offensive item that we can use to cast fire on enemies in order to kill them, which is going to be very handy as we're going through this game. Because not only is the Fire Rod useful for dealing with enemies, but it's also good for lighting these torches that we're going to find all over the world. There's a lot of puzzles that we're going to be needing to solve by lighting torches and stuff, so that's definitely something important to keep in mind. But yeah, we definitely got our work cut out from us here as we attempt to explore this world and just try to get everything we need in order to complete this adventure. Now, the end goal for this run is going to be to defeat the final boss, Ganon. But how we go about doing that is going to be fairly interesting, as we're going to need to obviously beat a couple of the dungeons to be able to access the final area of the game. And only by defeating the boss there will we be able to unlock the path to the final boss. So yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting to see how we go about this run here. It's definitely a lot that we're going to be able to do. So here in Hyrule Castle proper, there's definitely a lot we can see here. So this castle here is on high alert with a bunch of guards all over the place, and they will do their best just to try and stop us. So here in A Link to the Past, this was the third game released in the Legend of Zelda series, and it's quite good for its time. Like, this game really has aged pretty well, all things considered. Definitely one of my favorite SNES games. By a mile, this one is so good. Just really tell from the overall aesthetic of this place how... that's kind of glitched out there. You are not supposed to be, that. But yeah, we're just gonna try to maneuver around here and try to find our way down into the basement of the castle, as that's where our first main goal is going to be. Now, A Link to the Past could be widely considered somewhat of a remake of the original Legend of Zelda. In a lot of ways, it plays very similarly, but expanded on in a lot of ways. Just from the structure of the world. Obviously, there are a lot of similar aspects to it, like it being a top-down game. You have a lot of enemies you can encounter and fight on the overworld. There are dungeons to explore to be able to advance further along in the game. The final boss is a giant blue pig. But yeah, there is a lot we are able to do in this game. And yeah, we're going to see a lot more as we go forward. So what we picked up in that chest was something called a heart container. And doing that increases our maximum health. As you can see in the top of the screen there, we have 4 units of health. You start the game with only 3 units, and by collecting heart containers, which are typically dropped by boss monsters, you are able to increase your health. However, since we're playing under the randomizer rules, we can now find heart containers in quite a number of different ways. They're scattered all throughout this world, and they'll either be inside of chests, you can find them elusively in certain secluded areas, or they can still be dropped by bosses. So yeah, you're definitely going to see here just a lot of the different things that we are able to do in this adventure. Alright, can we just press that? Oh, that is fairly interesting. Also, I'm pretty sure I just soft-locked myself because I'm out of magic and we cannot escape from here. Oh dear. Yeah, we cannot kill this guy because our only method of attack is the fire rod. So, that's fun. If you're ever in a situation like this, just press the select button and hit save and quit. And then that should hopefully reset your position back to an area where you should be safe. Yep, so that took us back to where we were with our uncle. So the item we picked up there was the Book of Medora. It's going to be the key to accessing one of the dungeons later on, as well as our key to accessing quite a few different collectibles later on. So it's very nice that we were able to pick up that item for our progress here in this world. But yeah, until we find a proper weapon that doesn't consume magic, we're going to need to be pretty conservative with our uses of the fire rod, since we obviously only have a limited pool of magic. We're able to acquire more magic by a certain collectible later in the game, but I have no idea where that's going to be, so it should be really interesting for us to try and locate that. But yeah, we want to try and maneuver here in the dungeon as carefully as we can. It's kind of interesting, the first run I did on my Twitch channel, the first item we ended up picking up was the Cane of Samaria, and very soon after that we got the hook shot. So that gave us two really good methods of dealing with enemies really easily. But of course, one of those items we got is also an item that requires magic. So, kind of interesting that we're starting with a magic build here. Also, totally unintentional, the fact that we're playing as a wizard, and the first weapon we receive in the game is a magic rod. Like, I did not plan that. I did not set up the randomizer so that I knew what collectibles we would get at the start here. So yeah, that is gonna make things pretty interesting. Actually, really like thematically that we got the fire rod as our first collectible. Like, that's awesome. Yeah, that's usually an item you get in one of the later dungeons around the midpoint of the game, so I'm quite happy that we managed to obtain this. Obviously, among the various things we can grab in this adventure, we can pick up pots, which will usually contain items in them. We just burn that guy. That technically counted as a boss. That was the ball and chain soldier. If we go up here, we find Princess Zelda. So the story of this game is that in the Kingdom of Hyrule, recently a wizard managed to gain the favor of the King of Hyrule, and this wizard was known as Ganon. And Ganon ended up betraying and murdered the king so that he could wrest the power of the kingdom, and he has been slowly sacrificing maidens that share the blood of some ancient seers that were responsible for sealing off a different realm known as the Sacred Realm. And wouldn't you know it, Princess Zelda here, the daughter of the deceased king, is one of those maidens. So she's been locked up in the dungeon here below Hyrule Castle, and she used her magic to contact us telepathically and asked us to come and rescue her from the castle and try to escort her to safety. And that's kind of what her uncle was also doing. He left in order to try and do this, not wanting us to get involved, but he ended up being wounded by the guards, and so he has been forced to early retirement, and by which I mean he is deceased. And so we're supposed to take up his sword in order to save the princess. However, we did not obtain a sword from him, we instead got a magic rod. Again, very thematic for the character we're playing as. So, current responsibility now is just to rescue the princess, get her to safety, and hopefully just find a way to stop a Ganon before he completes his evil scheme of accessing this other dimension. That's pretty much all you need to know for the basic story here, at least for a while. There are other story elements to this game, but we'll worry about that in a bit. So now that we have Zelda, our combined strength is able to push this ornament by the throne room, and that opens up a new path for us, down into the sub-basement. Down here, there's a lot of other threats we gotta deal with. Namely, there are rats around here. So you'll want to try and collect these green pots, as those are used to refill your magic. Which is definitely going to be useful here, since our main method of attack is going to be with our rod. I'm not too worried about the rats here. They do move quickly, but they don't really do much damage to us, so we don't need to worry about that. But yeah, this portion is going to be a bit tricky, because it is very dark and can be difficult to navigate. So during this segment, in the original game, you would be exploring this area with a lantern, as that's the item that you pick up in the start of the game from the chest inside your uncle's house. But here we got the magic rod here to use fire attacks. So that's going to be our main method of attack during this portion here. What you're supposed to do is use the lantern in order to light the torches, thus allowing you to get a good view of things in this area. However, we have the fire rod instead, which basically does the same job, except it also has the added ability of being able to attack enemies. So it's really interesting that we managed to end up with this specific item over the one that you usually get. Again, very thematically appropriate. Just want to be careful, look around this area. There are also bats down here we need to worry about, as well as those snakes. So the bats are known as keys, and the snakes are called ropes. Yeah, the Zelda series has a lot of interesting enemy names. I'm probably going to need to kill this keys to get by, or you just brush off the head and just go forward. Alright, just want to be really careful here. There's another key we need. I don't know if we can obtain a key from a chest, or if we need to get it from killing an enemy. It's probably in the hands of one of the rats here. So we just try to kill these blokes. Okay, there wasn't any there. So we're all out of magic, but we do have another method of attack with us, and that is bombs. You want it? This one's going to be tricky because the rats like to move around. So if you plant a bomb on the ground, it will explode after a while. This is a good method with dealing with a few different hazards around here. Yep, there we go. We got the key. So now we can move out of here. So bombs are useful not only for dealing with enemies, but they can also break cracked walls like this one here. Now, normally you're not able to access this until much later in the game after you actually obtain bombs. But we're able to access this side area, giving us 3 different chests here. So that was a map, giving us a way of being able to see the map of Hyrule Castle, just showing off this whole area here. It's quite nice. We'd also get what's called a piece of heart. So basically that's a segment of a heart container. If we collect 4 of those, then we gain an extra heart. So those are also going to be helpful to collect. And we also picked up what's called a rupee. They are little gemstones that can be dropped from enemies, found under pots of bushes, or from cutting grass. Those are the main unit of currency within Hyrule. So by collecting a lot of rupees, we'll be able to purchase things from shops and also buy upgrades from certain NPCs, which will definitely be useful. We're going to acquire a lot of rupees over the course of our adventure. Now for this part, we need to pull that lever there, and we can go through this door. And this brings us to a church. So around here is the point where we would receive our main task from the princess, which would be to try and seek out a sage called Sahasrara in order to ask him for help in defeating Ganon. But at this point, we currently do not have access to that. But I believe if you just return here and talk to the man who runs the church, he can restore your health, which is fairly nice if you want a quick pick-me-up. But with that, this is where the world of Hyrule truly opens up. So now we're just able to fully explore this land and try to find what we need in order to complete the game. Yeah, this is going to be fairly interesting. Managed to pick up a few good things right off the bat that already unlocked a lot of stuff for us to do. However, there's still some stuff we're going to need other collectibles for. For instance, we can't pick up those big rocks over here, so we're going to need to do something about that later. And also, there's going to be tons of soldiers on the prowl. Yeah, another unfortunate thing with Ganon seizing control of this land is that he is now mind-controlling all of the soldiers at Hyrule Castle. And they're going to be patrolling this entire world trying to find us and the princess. But our first stop on our journey here is going to be over here. This is Kakariko Village. Certainly a hub for a lot of different things we can find here on our journey. We want to talk to as many of the residents around here as you can for information. Hey, Ardo, long time no see. You want a Master Sword? Well, good luck with that. It occurs to me I like toast and jam, but cheese and crackers is better. You like? I like some cheese. Anywho, I have things to do. You see those 2 ovens? Yeah, 2. Who has 2 ovens nowadays? So the randomizer changes up a bit of the dialogue from NPCs. Sometimes they give you hints about where you can find certain items, and sometimes they just troll you about a couple different things. So keep that in mind. So we want to explore a lot of the places around here, because you can get a lot of collectibles in Kakariko. I'm just some dude. This is Blind's hut. Blind is someone we're going to be well acquainted with later on. So this area is pretty interesting, as it was once the hideout for a notorious thief. And obviously there are some chests here that are left over from the thief's exploits. So what I want to do here is try to push these blocks so that we can acquire these items. So I want to think about the proper order we want to do this. So we want to push that, then we'll push this, and then for here we need to push that. Now we can acquire the sword! Right off the bat, the sword is our main method of attack. Very glad we were able to pick that up when we did. And we got another piece of heart, some more rupees, and the hook shot! So that is going to be very good for us. The hook shot can pull you towards certain objects, really good for getting past certain obstacles, and it can be pretty good for dealing with a few enemies. So I'm very happy we picked that up. So we'll definitely want to talk about combat with a sword in a bit, but we'll save that for a little bit. So we can grab all these rupees here, and at the end we picked up some more arrows. Very good. So now that we collected all these chests, there's a bunch of other stuff that we can do here in Kakariko, so we'll be exploring as much of this area as we can. I'm so happy we finally got the sword. So we go to this guy. This guy will have an item for us. Oh! So he will sell you a bottle if you're playing the original Link to the Past for 100 rupees. However, in this one, he had the Moon Pearl. So that is a very useful item for being able to navigate one of the major areas of this game. So we're really lucky we're able to grab that here. Ah! So by falling down that well, we're able to access this area, getting us some more arrows. The level 2 sword! So this is what's known as the Master Sword. The upgrade to our sword, so now we're at full health, we can fire beams of energy from our sword to deal with enemies from a distance. Very nice we were able to pick that up this early on in the adventure. Oh boy, that is great. And we're gonna need some bombs because we're all out. So there is a wall that we can blast over there. You're able to tell if a wall can be bombed and broken into if you see cracks along it. So definitely keep that in mind. We're going to need to find some more bombs. Luckily, there are plenty of chests in this world where we can obtain bombs from. So we'll have plenty of opportunities to get some. Ooh, so that is what's known as a Kuko. They're little chicken guys. Not much reason to attack them. I mean, there is one reason, but I don't recommend it. And over here, we got a statue of a bird. We'll definitely want to remember that for later. So we go into this house. Oh, look who's this a picture of. It's me, Mario. There's not much that's going to give us. Yeah, but definitely want to pick up those little red hearts if you're ever low on health, as they will restore your life. Also, be careful when talking to some of the villagers around here, because some of them will alert soldiers in order to attack you. So, yeah, be wary about that. If you go in here, I sure do have a lot of beds. Sora's a cheapskate will try to sell you as trash for 500 rupees. So that seems to indicate that an item we'll get from a certain NPC isn't going to be worth collecting. So we'll definitely want to keep that in mind. Over here, so this is the home of the Bug Kid. He's a kid who likes to catch bugs, and normally he would give you his bug catching net. I'm sick, show me a bottle, get something. Alright, so we're not able to do anything with him at the moment. So normally you would get his bug catching net, which is how you're able to acquire certain things that'll be useful to us later on. Yeep! That guy will just run away when you get close. This is Christos' hut. He's out searching for a bow. So that gives us a hint about where we can acquire a certain item. So that tells us that there is a bow that we can get from a certain NPC. Now, there's another cracked room that we can access via bombs. We're going to want to remember that. And if we go down here, so this hut over here is also an area we can access with bombs. But sadly, we can't do anything about that just yet. So yeah, we're definitely going to need to search around. Oh, there we go. And you can also find bombs in the grass. So definitely take a moment to search whenever you see bushes like that. Just gonna plant a bomb here and blow this open. Because inside this hut, should be able to acquire some things. We gotta get bombs, bombs, bombs. Yeah, basically, this hut is gonna be useful for replenishing your supply of bombs. If you come in here, the items under the pots will reset. So that gives you an infinite supply of bombs that you can use. Gonna be very useful to come back here whenever you are running low on resources. So let's plant our bombs. Also want to stay back when the bomb is placed, because the explosion will damage you. Ooh, so that is the Cane of Burna. So by expending magic, we can use the Cane of Burna in order to grant us invincibility temporarily. That is pretty dang useful. Definitely want to remember that. It's going to be very good for us later when we're facing certain obstacles. Especially when we're facing some of the later challenges if we haven't obtained any armor to help us. So now that we can bomb this wall here, we can access the treasures within, which is something. Got a bit of rupees, and that is the Power Glove. So that's an item you don't get until a little bit later on this adventure. The Power Glove enables us to lift heavy objects. So now we're able to lift up some of the stones that we see around the overworld. So that will be very useful to us. Oh boy, we're already getting so many good stuff here just in Kakariko Village. Yeah, whenever you're doing a randomizer run, explore Kakariko. There is so much you can obtain here. And by going to the back of this house, we get a bottle with a fairy in it. So this bottle here is going to be pretty useful to us, as bottles are used for storing a variety of different things. We can store potions in them to use at any time to restore our health or magic, or both. We can use them to store fairies, which will provide an instant revitalization should we ever fall in battle, as well as replenishing some health. And you can also store bees that you sometimes find in the bottle, though there's really no reason to do it. Life, love, happiness? Question you should really ask is, was this generated by Stoops Alu or Stoops Jet? I don't know. Goriah sure has changed in this game. I hope he comes back around. Interesting dialogue there. So yeah, this is a bar, and one of the NPCs here is actually drowning his sorrows because his son has disappeared and he doesn't know what happened to him. Yeah, this may seem like a kiddie game at first glance, but there's a lot to this adventure that, when we go deeper in, quite a bit to it. So this is an item shop that we'll find all throughout the world. You can buy hearts to replenish your health. We can restock on bombs whenever we want, which at this point, I'll grab a couple of these. So the maximum amount of bombs we can carry at the moment is 10, but we'll be able to get more later. And you can also buy red potion, which will be good for restoring your health. We're not going to worry about that just now, but do remember that for later, because this game can be quite difficult, and we're going to need as many potions as we can get. Someday I'll be in a high school band. Yeah, good luck with that, kid. Alright, so now I want to head to the east of town here. There's quite a few things we can see around this area, like this guard. Ha! We're finally able to kill these assholes. There's nothing we can do about these pile of stones yet, but you want to remember that for later. If we head into this cave, there's not much we can do here for the time being. And if we go up here, so there's this large peg in the ground that we're not going to be able to do anything with until we obtain a later item. So I'll want to remember that. And if we go in here, there's a little dwarf. I lost my friend! Help me find him! So these guys are going to be useful for certain quests down the line. So want to watch out for another dwarf that's going to be lost somewhere in the world. But we're probably not going to see him until much later on, so we're not going to worry about that. But over here, to the south of the village, we can find a library. And you definitely want to come in here to check on what is on the shelf here. So currently, it just seems like there's 20 rupees. Yeah, the rupees come in different value depending on their color. The basic green rupees are worth 1 point, blue rupees are worth 5, and then the red rupees are worth 20. So that's important to note when you're going through this area. Pay 20 rupees, open 1 chest. Are you lucky? Yeah, we'll play this. It's basically just a chance for you to try and increase your rupee count. So there, we managed to break even by getting 20 rupees. There's really not much else to that little game there. But if we go over this way... I walled off my brother Leo. What a dingus. Now, that's quite mean of you. We're gonna open up that wall, you dick. By going in here... Did you come from my brother's room? Are we cool? Yeah, we're cool. If we go over here, there's a game that we can play. Might be a good idea to have Fire Rod. Actually, we don't even have magic, so never mind. Yeah, 15 seconds. Go, go, go. It's got ourselves a little game here. Want to navigate through this maze as quickly as we can. We can take a shortcut by jumping down there and, oh, your time was 9 seconds. Nice, you can have this trash. So that is the level 3 sword, also known as the Tempered Sword. So with this, our attack power is incredibly high. I was not expecting us to get this many sword upgrades this early on. My god, that is good. So the level 3 sword is obviously more powerful than the one we had before. This is really good. Normally you get this sword as the prize for helping out the dwarven blacksmiths. So us getting this really early on is just so amazing. I am so happy we got that here. Some more guards around here. We can now one-shot the blue guards with our sword, which is really nice. We go up here, there's a bunch of animals running away, except for this guy. Do you have craisins? What? So there's not much we can do in this forest glade at the moment, but we do want to remember this for later. Yeah, it's going to be a little while before this becomes useful to us. So, what else are we going to do around here? There's quite a few areas that you do want to make note of, as there are a lot of hidden areas that can have chests that you'll want to access. Ow. So sometimes enemies will also have bows and arrows, which they can use in order to do quite a bit of damage to you. So it'll be good to... What we're gonna need to do is get a shield. I don't know exactly where we're gonna find one, but it's pretty important for you to grab a shield at some point. Also, you can find patches of water around the world. If you try to enter deep water, you won't be able to get far. Ow! Stepped on a landmine there. So yeah, don't go into the water until much later. You need to obtain a certain item to be able to do that. Now, we disturbed a bee that was in the grass. That will just chase you around and try to attack you. If you're able to put a bee in a bottle, then you can... Then you gain the ability to just... Ow, you jerk! You can release the bee whenever you want in order to damage enemies, which can be quite nice. Yeah, definitely want to go exploring as much of this world as we can. There's a ton of stuff for us to do. Hello, sir. Doesn't seem like he wants to talk. Alright. Ooh, we got a fairy to appear there. Sadly we only have one bottle, so there's not much reason for us to take this fairy at the moment. Oh, we disturbed that little crab guy. And we opened this little area here, now that we have the power glove. This place you can obtain a lot of rupees, so definitely good to disturb this area. So, you like busted down my door and are being a jerk by talking to me? Normally be angry and make you pay for it, but I bet you're just gonna break all my pots and steal my 50 rupees. That's exactly what I was going to do. Thanks, sir. So, yep, you're able to obtain a lot of money there. Very good. So these crow guys up there you definitely want to watch out for. I think they're called Gways. They're not too bad in this game, but later games would usually make them steal items from you, so something to keep in mind. Well done, let us have a cup of tea. So this is what's known as a Great Fairy. When you come visit the Great Fairy's fountain and you're low on health, they will fully restore your life. Definitely very useful to come and visit them. And if we go over here, we're actually in the... We're in the southwestern section of Hyrule here, which is the home of the desert. It's kind of interesting how... kind of exploring this area now, given that we're now in a period of time where Zelda Echoes of Wisdom has been released. It's pretty interesting to know that this area is so close to a Gerudo settlement. But with the way the world is layout, we're not able to access that area. Quite interesting. Once I farted in this cave so bad all the jazz hand guys ran away and hid in the sand. What the f... fuck are you talking about? So we go into this room here. We can obtain... Wow, we got that so soon? So that is the Titan's Mitt. It's an upgrade to the Power Glove that allows us to lift even heavier objects. So with that, we're pretty much able to lift any obstacle in our path. It's going to be really good for exploring this map, because we can now get past so much stuff. But yeah, theoretically we could access this dungeon now, since we have the Titan's Mitt and the Book of Medora. But considering our current resources, we might not want to go in here until a bit later. I mean, we could probably do this now since we have the Power Glove. Yeah, why not? Let's try this. So by using the Book of Medora here, it tells us to make a wish in front of this monolith in order to open the way forward. I wish for a big titty goth waifu. Or that. I guess that works too. Fine. And we can go into this weird statue thing. Opening the way to what's supposed to be the second dungeon of the game, but we're making it our first. So yeah, this is the Desert Palace. There is a lot of hazards we can find here. So this palace here is one of the main dungeons that we're going to need to explore in order to beat the game. As we saw on the map, this area was marked with a crystal. We're going to need to get all of the crystals found throughout the dungeons in order to be able to access the final dungeon of the game and thus beat the game. So we definitely need to explore as much of this area as we can. There's a lot of hazards we need to deal with here. Like these cactus guys that will pop out of the sand. Those are called levers. And then we got these big centipede guys that will just pop out of the ground every now and then. Not much we really need to worry about them. Alright, so this area is a trap. I don't think you're supposed to go in here. Just spawns a bunch of enemies for you to defeat. Luckily, with our current sword, we should be able to handle anything in this area. Yeah, you're not even supposed to get the level 2 sword before accessing this place. That just goes to show how... Oh, yeah, I'm seeing now this area. Yeah, we're probably not going to be able to do everything in this place. So that statue over there is what's known as an Igor, and normally you're only supposed to be able to damage these guys if you have a bow and arrow. Well, you're basically able to one-shot them if you have the bow and arrow. There's another version of the Igor that you can only kill with the bow, but we don't have to worry about those guys just yet. Alright, so managed to obtain that key from that chest. So that is what's known as the boss key. You need to collect the boss key in order to be able to access the area where you can find the boss of the dungeon. And you need to defeat them in order to get everything. A heart container is in plain sight. Alright, so over here we're not going to be able to access this key until we obtain an item called the Pegasus Boots. So, yeah, we're probably not going to be able to access more of this area. Depending on how things go here, because we actually might be able to access the last area of this place, depending on how things go. So the main item you need to watch out for in here, so in the normal Link to the Past, you're able to obtain the Power Glove here. Or we can just get a heart container, because that's what we can get here. Yeah, this is normally where you would get the Power Glove, so it's obviously very necessary to get. Are we able to get the heart container from that one? So it means we're going to get a different item from the boss in this dungeon. So it could definitely be worth it to fight the boss just to obtain that item. So we're not going to be able to fully explore this place until we get the Pegasus Boots. But we don't have to worry about that at the moment. Alright, so I believe this room, if we push one of the blocks here, So want to watch out for these statue guys. They are called Beamos, and they will fire a beam from their eye to damage you. Alright, that is just a fairy fountain. You can use those to replenish your health at any time. Yeah, definitely watch out for the Beamos, because they can hurt. So now we're able to access this section of the desert we couldn't access before. And just has bombs, nothing else to it. Like those vulture guys. They may look irritating, but they're pretty tasty. Flame broiled with a pinch of salt. Sorry, I've had Spyro on my mind quite a bit since I've been re-uploading my Spyro videos from when I streamed the first game over on my Twitch channel. So that's definitely been on my mind. So here we got ourselves a new hazard. These are floating tiles, which now that we know from Echoes of Wisdom, these were actually designed by the Gerudo people. Which kind of makes sense, given that the main villain of this game was a Gerudo himself, before being turned into the monstrous pig demon that we know him as now. So yeah, we just need to avoid the floating tiles. You can do that just by running around the room, or you can slash them with your sword to destroy them. They're really not that bad of an obstacle. Sadly, we're not going to be able to go farther unless we have a key. Oh, there it is. There we go. Again, search everywhere in these dungeons. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get anything. So down here, we got some more enemies to deal with. So probably going to need to kill all these guys. So the dungeons obviously offer a lot of different puzzles for you to try to solve. They can range from just defeating all the enemies in a room to figuring out some other stuff, like in this area. Now, for this room, you're supposed to light the torches with the... Ow. Oh, I guess that wasn't what we're supposed to do there. Alright, we grab that key and then we can go forward. Yeah, I was thinking about a different dungeon, actually. So for this room, we got a key there that we can use to quickly get out of there without having to worry about that. Alright, that's what I was talking about with the red eye group. So those guys can only be destroyed with a bow. Now I'm just going to ignore you and light these torches, opening the way forward. So now we're able to take on the boss of this dungeon, which really shouldn't be any problem at all given our current equipment. We are a bit low on health for this area, but we should be good. So the boss here of the Desert Palace is Lawnmolos. It's a trio of giant centipede monsters that will burrow in and out of the sand. Simply strike their heads with your sword and you should be good. This can be quite an intimidating battle your first time, but it's really not too much trouble. Especially with our current equipment. Also want to watch out because they will shoot rocks out of the ground whenever they come up. But as long as you stand at the right angle, you should be able to avoid damage from the rocks. And like that, we're able to kill the Lawnmolos. Very nice. Man, we're not even an hour into this session, and we already managed to beat our first boss. And with that, we managed to obtain the crystal. So there are 7 crystals we can obtain from 7 dungeons in this game. And you're going to need to gather all the crystals in order to access the final dungeon. So yep, we are looking pretty good here, now that we have obtained that first crystal. And with our current equipment here, yeah, we are looking pretty good. Managed to clear up most of the stuff in the desert. Though I do think there is one more item that we can obtain here. But we're going to have to save that for a bit later once we obtain the Pegasus boots. So for now, we are done with the desert. It was certainly very interesting. Also, yeah, those are the jazz hand guys that old man was talking about. I always forget what they're called. I think they're called Geldmen. But yeah, those guys are pretty funky looking. Also, for some reason, this part of the desert shaped like an octopus. I don't know why. But yeah, that was a pretty fun run of the desert area. We managed to get a lot done there, so definitely very nice. And we'll obviously want to return here once we obtain some more juicy stuff. So yeah, now we're able to pick up these dark stones, now that we have the Titan's Mint, which is going to be very good for opening new pathways that we can find in this world. Alright, so over here around the south, this is an area that is associated with an area called the Swamp Palace. So there are two different things we're going to want to do here in our first run of this area. So I want to go in there and grab that item, and then want to go back in to access this later area. So over here, it has an area called, well, it has an area with these levers you can pull in order to drain the water from the swamp. And by doing that, it drains the water out here, giving us access to an item there. Normally that would be a piece of heart. You can also find these fish that are flopping around. You can actually give the fish to the merchant over in Kakariko Village, and then he will reward you with some rupees in exchange for it. But we don't need to worry about that. We'll get plenty of money over the course of this adventure, so we do not need to worry about that. Alright, so this area here by the swamp, there's quite a few things that we can find over here. Namely, if we open up this cave, should be able to acquire some goodies. Alright, there is a fairy that can heal us. Very good, considering that we took a bit of a beating getting to this area. There's another section to the northwest part of the swamp, but we're going to save that for later, since we don't have the item to be able to access that. But if we go down to this little area here, got some new classic enemies from the first Zelda. These are Octoroks. They will spit rocks from their snout, and they can be a bit of a pain because they move very quick, but we should be good. And over here we got some, I believe these are called moles, and we just need to kill these guys from a distance. Luckily, the hook shot that we got is able to easily handle them. I remember back when I first streamed this, I didn't really have the best method of attacks against those guys, so I had to resort to bombs to deal with them. So we talk to that guy to get some rupees, and we can take our plunder here, getting another piece of heart, some arrows, 300 rupees, so really kicking it there, and some more rupees. So this was the cave that I first managed to pick up the sword back when I first played this over on Twitch. So that's certainly giving us a lot of good collectibles there. So over here in the water, you'll see these little fish guys poking their heads up. Those are called Zoras. They'll spit fireballs at you, and it can be a bit of a pain, so definitely watch out for them. So this area here is actually called Lake Hylia, and this area has a lot of stuff we're able to get, should we fully explore it. Sadly, we're not going to be able to do anything in the water until much later. Also got these crab enemies that are walking around here. A detail I like about the crabs is that when they're moving up and down, they move very slow. But when they are moving left to right, they move very fast. Get it? Because they're crabs. So over here, we can get some more items here, some rupees. I'm a rupee pot farmer. One day I'll take over the world with my skills. Have you met my brother in the desert? He's way richer than I am. So now we got that. We should be able to access this area here. So this area is normally where you would be able to obtain the Ice Rod, which is the counterpart to the Fire Rod. can be quite useful to us. You can use it to freeze enemies. However, we're not going to be able to really do anything with that. We can also obtain some fairies here at this fountain, should you ever need them. Luckily, I already have a fairy in a bottle, so we don't need to worry about that. But yeah, to access that chest we saw in that icy cave, you need to plant a bomb here. And that will open the way forward. Why was that guard hiding in there? Why was he hiding in the grass? And in this chest, so that has a bee in a bottle. We can release that bee in order to deal damage to enemies. In fact, I might as well show this off here. So I believe this bee is special, and it's what's known as the golden bee. When you release it, the golden bee is completely non-lethal to you. It will seek out any enemies on the map and take them out. And you can store the golden bee in your bottle as many times as you can if you have the right item to be able to catch it, which sadly we don't. So we're gonna have to say goodbye to our golden friend here. Alas, poor Benjamin. Sorry, I was trying to come up with a fitting name for him, and that's all I could come up with. So yeah, that does it with this section of Lake Hylia. There's some other stuff we'd be able to access if we could go in the water, but sadly, we cannot. So we're just gonna move onward. Also, there's a bee there. Ow. Leave me alone, guys. Ow, God, we are so low on health right now. I mean, I have a fairy, so I don't really need to worry too much about taking damage. But this is still pretty risky to be out here with, like, no healing. There we go. Grab those bombs, too. Alright, so what's our next destination gonna be? Ow. Okay, with our current resources, there should be some areas to the north and the west we should be able to do now. So we go up here, this actually takes us back to Link's house. However, there's not much reason for us to go back here, as our uncle is now dead, so we obviously aren't gonna expect to get any chicken and waffles from him anymore. So, what are we going to do now? Alright, should be some other stuff we can do. Now that we have the Titan's Mitt, I think it'd actually be good to go back to the Sanctuary, where Zelda is. There's also some stuff we can do in Hyrule Castle now that we have the Master Sword, but I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. There's definitely some stuff I want to do over this way to the east in a bit. For now, I just want to try and do some stuff in the north. Alright, that path will lead us back to the castle. So I want to head over this way, perhaps. Yeah, we can take this bridge over to the Sanctuary. And think around here. Yep, we can dive down this hole, giving us access to this area, which, as you can tell from the music, probably has something good in it. Yep, there's a fairy to restore our health. Very nice. And what can we find over here? Nothing. Alright, it's just a quick way to be able to restore your health. Could be useful later on if you need it. But yeah, what I want to do here is I got this graveyard that has a bunch of stuff we can access. Also, this red guy over here has tridents that he'll throw at us. Pretty nasty if he manages to get us. So this big grave over here, there's something we can do with that later, but we're gonna have to come back when we get the Pegasus boots. But we can push open this grave, and we fall down here. So this actually leads back below Hyrule Castle. Just a quick way to be able to access this area, which can be good if you have bombs and want to access those hidden items there. But we don't need to worry about this area. There is nothing more we need to get here. Also, I believe if you pull the lever on the left side of this room, it will instead drop bombs. Hey guys, I'm back. Did you seriously just fall down the grave? I did. Well, good luck. By the way, I have the Master Sword. Oh, that's a lot sooner than expected. I know, right? Okay. So where are we gonna go next? Dealt with everything we need around the sanctuary, but around the northwestern corner of Hyrule, there's some other stuff that we can obtain here. And it's definitely some stuff we want to do around the northern section of the map. But we're probably going to wait a little bit before we access some of the things here. Because now that we have the gloves, we can lift that rock there to access the mountain in the northern section of the map. But we're going to go there in just a little bit, because I want to make sure we have some other items first. And over here we got ourselves a pair of lumberjacks. One of us always tells the truth. One of us likes peanut butter. So these guys are actually named A. Bumpkin and B. Bumpkin. Lumberjacks Incorporated. You see him? We saw him. Hey, that's a good pun. So yeah, these guys will just be trying to chop down this tree. Later, there is something we can obtain from that tree later on, but for now, we're just gonna leave them to it. Oh! Oh! That's the level 4 sword! Oh, I want it so bad! So the level 4 sword is what's known as the Golden Sword. Normally, you're not able to get that until much later on. And yeah, I'm going to want to grab that, because that is really good. Sadly, we're not going to be able to access that until we beat the boss of Hyrule Castle. Yeah, there's a boss in there we need to deal with. But we're going to have to wait a while before we go in there, because in order to fully explore Hyrule Castle, we're going to need the lantern. However, up here in the forest, this gives us a couple of areas that we can see. So this is what's known as the Lost Woods, a recurring area throughout the Zelda series. And there's quite a few things that we can discover here. So we head down this hole here. This drops us down here, getting us the hammer. Ooh. So that item unlocks so many new stuff for us that we can do. Like, there is an area to the south of... Actually, we're not going to be able to do that until we get another item, so we're going to forget it. Have you seen Andy? He's out looking for a prize Ether medallion. I wonder when he will be back. Alright, something about an Ether medallion. So I want to remember that for later. Yeah, Lost Woods is quite a few things that we can see here within the forest. So we also got some thieves over here. If they bump into you, they will take items from you. So definitely want to watch out. Do not let them touch you. Which, you know, should be standard for a few things. Ooh. So over here you would normally find a mushroom. However, we got 100 rupees. So that's pretty nice. Got a good stockpile of money here. And eventually, once we gain the ability to swim, we'll be able to actually spend these rupees later on. Actually, I want to go up here, because we go all this way. This is normally where you would obtain the Master Sword after gathering free pendants from some dungeons. We use the Book of Medora here. Maximum health increased. Yeah. Oh. So that will tell you the item that you get from the Master Sword. So it's going to be actually useful to come back here. So what we need to do is gather the free pendants scattered throughout the various dungeons in this world. So you can see one of the pendants is over in that dungeon all the way in the east, known as the Eastern Palace. So that's probably going to be our next destination. But we're not going to be able to actually complete that until later, because we need a certain item. Well, we need 2 items to complete that. We need to obtain the bow and arrow, and then we also need to obtain the lantern before we can fully explore that area. But there are still some things that we should be able to get around the Eastern Palace, so it could be useful to go back there later. Also, if we head down this way, this takes us to a section of the forest that has something that I do want to make note of. Now that we have the hammer, we can hammer down these pegs, and we can lift up that rock, exposing that blue tile. That serves as a gateway to another section of the world. But we are not going to take that just yet, because with our current items, we're not going to have an easy way to get back from that place. So, yeah, we're going to want to stay around here. Yeah, given our current loadout. So we'll probably want to make a way over to the Eastern Palace and see what we can obtain around there. Yeah, for current stockpile of items, we are pretty good for exploring around that area, but we are going to need to come here with some other stuff later. Also, there's something we can do here, but I'm going to save that for later, because we don't have all the items we need to do that. Alright, so on our way to the Eastern Palace, what's some other stuff we can talk about? Well, I guess I can say that I am currently in the middle of a 3-day break from work, and I've definitely been having a nice time just enjoying myself. Spent some time doing some art based on a certain Pokemon fan comic that I've been reading the last couple of years, and it was quite nice that I managed to get that done and show off to the creator of said webcomic, so definitely very happy about that. And I've also been taking the time to play some more Genshin Impact, since I've been doing that all month. Pretty much decided to make Genshin Impact the main game that I'd be playing throughout this month, since I obviously want to not spend a whole lot in preparation of obtaining the Switch 2 in a couple weeks. So yeah, I am really excited for the Switch 2. It's going to be so good. Just from everything I've seen from the trailers for Mario Kart World, that looks like it's going to be a ton of fun, and I'm really excited for the later games that are coming to the system. Like Donkey Kong Bonanza, Pokemon Legends ZA. God, it is such a wild time to be a Nintendo fan. Yeah, what I want to do here... Ow, quit it. So I want to head over... not quite over this way, because there's something I want to show off over here in the northeast. Let's go over this area. Has a lot of Octoroks. So we just maneuver our way past these guys. You can obtain, if we go up here, these more bow and arrow guys. Yeah, the knights definitely come in a lot of flavors to give you a lot of different tricks to deal with. Luckily, we're well equipped for dealing with these guys now. Alright, so this area has something that's going to be pretty useful to us for obtaining healing items. Oh, sorry. God, sorry about that. I had to sneeze. You know, biological functions and all that. So this is the witch's hut. Double, double, toilet trouble! Bring me a mushroom! That doesn't rhyme. But yeah, this place is quite nice if you want to go to healing. The witch's hut here, talk to this girl, she will fully restore you. And you can also buy potions here, which given our current equipment is going to be very useful to us. So with our bottle, we can spend these on the various potions here. I'm going to go ahead and grab the blue potion, as this is the best one in the game. So red potions will fully restore your health, green potions will fully replenish your magic, and the blue potion restores health and magic. So grab the one that you feel would be best for you at that current time, and you should be good. Let's see, here we got plenty of different items for us here. So now that we have 2 bottles, that gives us 2 different options for healing. So having a fairy in one bottle and then filling your other bottles with potions is pretty much the most optimal way to play this game when it comes to accessing different healing options here. Because just having a fairy on standby to heal you is always really good. Definitely recommend that when you're playing this game. Up here in the northern section of this area, there's an area referred to as Zora's Domain. So remember those fish guys that we see pop out of the water every now and then? Yeah, this is their main home. The Zoras here are quite the interesting people, and I really like how later games expand on the Zoras quite a bit and their culture. Definitely some of my favorite characters in all of Zelda happen to be Zoras. But yeah, in this game, for the most part, they tend to be enemies. So the best we can do is just try to take them out when we can. But yeah, Zora's Domain, this area has a lot of things that we can grab. And one item in particular, okay, that just looks like 10 arrows. So it looks like there's not much that we're going to want to grab here. I may come back to this area off stream just to see what we can collect here, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be anything worthwhile here. So normally you'd be able to buy the flippers by talking to King Zora at the end of this area for 500 rupees. And the flippers are how you're able to access things in the water, giving you the ability to swim. And that opens up a ton of stuff you're able to do. Sadly, there is not much that we're going to be able to do here, so we're going to just move on and try to find the flippers somewhere else. And I forget when it was that I obtained the flippers back in my old playthrough of this back on Twitch. It's going to be pretty interesting comparing this run of the game through my Twitch playthrough. Because, yeah, there were a lot of very interesting things that happened during that playthrough. Also kind of feels worth it to mention now. So when I was uploading the VODs from my previous randomizer run, something I noticed, so during those live streams, what I did in place of just having the background music playing is that I brought up some videos that were playing a collection of Zelda music from various games. And I would have that on the background just playing a bunch of different tunes. Now, sadly, when I was uploading the VODs over here on YouTube, apparently some of those tracks fall under some copyright stuff. So those Twitch VODs ended up being restricted in some regions. So that's basically another reason why I'm playing through this game here on YouTube, so that we can have a version of our Link to the Past randomizer run where we don't have to worry about copyright, hopefully. But yeah, I'm hopefully this able to go on well. Alright, so over here at the Eastern Palace region, this area is quite nice. I like this old-timey ruin aesthetic we have with all of these places. If we go into this house, this gives us the home of Sahasrara. Want something for free? Go earn the green pendant in Skullwoods and I'll give you something. Sahasrara here is one of your main allies back in the original Link to the Past. He bestows upon you various hints about stuff that you need to do throughout the adventure. And he's definitely a good ally to have. So able to grab some arrows there, some rupees, and... oh, so that is the Ether Medallion. That is quite the interesting item. you can use that to send a blast of cold air throughout the current area, which is able to freeze enemies in their tracks, and also grants you access to certain areas. So that's quite nice to pick up. Sadly, there's not much we're going to be able to do with it at the moment, but it's still very nice to have. Thinking about some of the other stuff we're going to need to do here. There's quite a bit of stuff up the mountain that we're eventually going to need to do, but we'll save that for a little bit, because we still got a little bit to explore in this map. Alright, so I think we want to head this way now. And if we head down to the south, I know there are some things we should be able to find here. This very secluded section of the map. By the way, these moving statue guys are called Armos. There's really not much to them. They will just try to rush you when you approach them. There's also a warp point there, but we're not going to take that just now. So we go all the way at the end of this cave. It actually has some more fairies for us. Yeah, we're currently full when it comes to healing items, so we don't need to worry about that. Alright, I would like to go into the Eastern Palace and see what we could obtain. But there are obviously going to be some restricted areas in here, since we can't fully explore this place until we have the lantern and the bow and arrow. Yeah, this could definitely be a little interesting. So go up the steps here. This will take us to the entrance to the Eastern Palace. And this is the main area up here. I like these really eerie statues at the front. I don't know what they're supposed to be. But yeah, there's the entrance to the Eastern Palace. We're not going to go in there just yet, because I don't have all the items we need to explore this area, but we're doing pretty good at the moment. Just need to figure out where we're going to go next. And given our current track record and what we managed to obtain so far, I'm thinking we may want to head up to the mountain. So yeah, what we can see here on the map, you can obviously see there's another crystal up in the mountain to the north. So this area is known as Death Mountain back in the older games. But I want to say recently in... So I believe it was... Echoes of Wisdom, I believe, that completely changed the name of this area. So I believe this area is now referred to as Mount Lanayru, which is an area that definitely has some significance if you played Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. But yeah, back in the older days, this area was known as Death Mountain. But nowadays, Death Mountain is usually associated with the Gorons, which are a tribe of rock people that sadly don't appear in this game, so we're not going to see any of those guys here. Alright, so I want to head up this way. Also, you may have noticed I've not been attacking these green guys. So these guys, if you attack them normally with your sword, they will electrocute you. They're what's known as gel blobs. So what you need to do is stun them using an item like the hook shot, and then they won't be able to zap you when you attack them. That's the key to dealing with those guys. Okay, I was worried about this. Yeah, this area is dark. Unless you have the lantern, you won't be able to see where you are in some areas. So in this case, we're not going to be able to explore this cave and access the mountain. There is another way we'll be able to access the mountain, but sadly I don't think we'll be able to do that until later. Alright, so given what we currently have available to us, I think we're actually going to head back to the Eastern Palace, just so we can explore a little bit of it. We're not going to be able to do everything we can in that area, but this will at least give us a good glimpse at what we can do as far as this first run is going. Is that we're probably going to be doing this for about another half hour, as I tend to do 2-hour streams. So we're not going to take nearly as much time playing this game in compared to how we were doing things back in the old ones, where, my god, we were streaming for around 3 hours sometimes back when I first did this on Twitch. Yeah, I do not have the energy to do longer than 2-hour sessions, so I hope that you're all able to bear with me as we're just going through things the way that I feel like going about them. God, I also don't know how, like, some streamers like Ray and Iron Mouse are able to do those long-ass sessions. Because I obviously don't have the energy for that. And I'm very close to being 32 this year. Only a couple more months until my birthday. So, yeah, I'm going to be 32 this year. That is quite the achievement. Also really shows how long that I've obviously had a lot of experience with the Zelda series. It's actually pretty interesting. I really love A Link to the Past. Definitely up there as one of my favorite Zelda games. This game was released before I was born. It's so crazy to think about that. And how I was born the same year that Link's Awakening was released. I know that really makes me feel old, but still pretty nice to say, you know? Just considering the history of this series, and when I was first exposed to all this. So here at the Eastern Palace, this is usually the first dungeon you go about this game. I just went through things out of order because, well, I had everything I needed to finish the Desert Palace. This area has a lot of traps for us to deal with. There are these large cannonballs that will shoot out here. So definitely want to watch out for those bad boys. And there's a lot of different pathways we can take around here. This area has quite a bit for us to see, and we'll definitely want to look around as much as we can. Ooh, so that is the bug net. Believe it or not, this is one of the most OP weapons in the game against one specific boss. You're also able to use it to catch fairies and bees in your bottles, so that's definitely a good thing for you to remember for the future. But yeah, Eastern Palace. This is a big area with a lot of things for us to do, and sadly, we're not going to be able to do everything here on our first visit, because we don't have all the items we need to complete this place. But we'll try to make some progress through this area and try to clear up some of the obstacles in our way. So you can see there's a chest over there. Thanks to our hook shot, we just quickly go over there and grab the item, which was the compass. I forgot to mention it until this point, but the compass will show you where you can find the big boss of whichever dungeon you're exploring on your map. So yeah, definitely consult your map whenever you obtain either the dungeon map or the compass. Gives you a good idea on where you need to go to accomplish your objectives. Alright, there's another area to the south we should be able to access. But we need to go to a lower level to be able to do that. Alright, we'll definitely want to consider that. For now, let's head over this way. So now that we're playing this game, I also want to mention that very recently a streamer I follow called Masay has been playing through this game, and it's pretty much a blind playthrough for her. Because yeah, she's obviously played a lot of the Zelda games, just not the older ones. And it's definitely been interesting seeing her go through this game. Like, I don't want to insult her too much based on her playstyle, it's clear that she's not used to this style of Zelda game. You know, the top-down ones. Where you're just exploring, like, these square rooms. Compared to, like, the 3D games, which obviously have a lot more freedom with how you're able to explore the area. So there we're able to pick up the big key. You are playing A Link to the Past Randomizer. Yes. Yes, I am, game. How did you know that? So the blocks over here, so they block off the path that way. So we head over this way, we can access the main room here. And what can we find in this big chest? That is the map. So normally that chest would contain the bow and arrow, which is necessary if you're going to complete this dungeon. Also got these skulls that are going to be floating at us here. So the main enemies we have around here are what's known as Stalfos. They're the big skeleton guys that are like throw their heads or their bones at you. They're pretty standard Zelda enemies, all things considered. Alright, this is the dangerous room I was thinking of. And yeah, we're not going to be able to fully explore this area unless we have the lantern. There's just no way we'll be able to do that. And we don't have the item that quickly warps us out. So, I feel like we're just going to have to save and quit. Now, I believe since we did that... Oh, we can't just warp straight to the dungeon. I was thinking that there is another area we could explore in here, but considering that we got the bug net from the dungeon, I don't feel like there's going to be anything else that we can obtain. Like, there should be at least one important item in there, but it's probably not going to be dropped from anything other than the boss. So, yeah, I feel like we're not going to be heading out that way. But in terms of other places that we can go to, I just want to think of all of our different options. Because we can't go in the mountain just yet. We can't do the Eastern Palace. So I think it's time that we start exploring the other area of the game. For anyone who is familiar with A Link to the Past, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So let's start by going to our house. Want to stock up on health here. And then, where are we going to go? I was thinking we actually head back to... Actually, there's an area to the south we should be able to access for this. Yeah, we should be able to do that now that we have the hammer. Alright, for current stock of items, there's quite a bit we can do. Just nothing we can do to access the main dungeons in this section of the world. However, with our current stock of items, this does open up new pathways that we can take. We want to grab that green pot to replenish our magic. So we go up here into the northwestern corner of the swamp. We can lift up this stone that's past these pegs that you need to bring down with a hammer. So we take this portal. Welcome to the Dark World. This is a whole new area that we have to explore here in The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past. Pretty much this entire area is an inverted form of the entirety of the main area of Hyrule. So we're divided into the Light World, which is the main game, and then the Dark World, which is full of different stuff for us to do. And you can just see on the map all the various crystals that we can obtain, as well as the various pendants that we're going to need in order to access some stuff. So yeah, we got ourselves a lot that we got to take care of in this adventure. We'll definitely want to go after the pendants because there is a health upgrade we can get from the Master Sword's pedestal. But there's a bunch of other things that we can obtain as well in this world. Starting, if we head up to the north, we go up here to what used to be our house. It's now a bomb shop. Bring me the crystals from Turtle Rock and Misery Mire so I can make a big bomb. So yeah, there are certain crystals that we need in order to access a certain thing later on. As you can see here, some of the crystals on the map are red. Those indicate that you need them in order to be able to form something later on, but we'll save that for another time. So yeah, here in the Dark World, things are obviously a lot more dangerous than they were back in the main map of Hyrule. The enemies around here are much tougher and will deal a lot more damage. So until we get some more health and defensive upgrades, exploring this area is going to be really tricky because the enemies here do so much damage. Also, there's an aspect to this area that we're not going to be able to fully explore until we get another item. But we're probably going to find it somewhere in this world. Like, it's got to be hidden somewhere. So we go around here, we can talk to this goblin guy here. Gives us 300 rupees. So there's not much we can do with him for the time being. So remember earlier when I mentioned that there is an NPC in Kakariko who's drowning his sorrows because his son went missing? That goblin guy is his son. He ended up stumbling into the Dark World, and due to the cursed nature of this place, his form was turned into that of a monster. And now he's stuck here, unable to return back to the Light World. Poor kid. All he wanted to do was play his flute in the forest for all the animals. So yeah, this area has a lot of stuff for us to want to take care of. So over here, so back over where we did the maze race here. We talked to this guy. This gives us a bit of a challenge. We need to just try to dig in these spots here. And there's an item that we can collect here if we're able to dig enough. So what you need to do to get this item, I think you just need to dig a certain number of times. And that allows you to pick up the item here. In that case, we got a piece of heart, which I believe is just the standard item that you get as the big prize from the digging game. You can also obtain a lot of rupees. So yeah, that was definitely very nice for getting some collectibles for us. We're able to get another piece of heart, which is gonna put us approximately... Yeah, we need 3 more for our next heart container. So we're gonna need to find another way to do that. So over there is a shooting gallery. There's not much we can do there until we get the bow and arrow. And it's purely so you can obtain rupees. So over there, we'll want to remember that frog for later. Sadly, we can't do anything with him yet because we don't have the item for traveling between the light and dark worlds. But yeah, this area certainly seems like a dark reflection of Kakariko Village. So this is known, I believe, as the Village of Outcasts. So we're going to see a lot of thieves in this area, as well as other monstrosities lurking about. So we open that chest, we get some rupees. And what else can we find here? So got these skeletal cuckoos here. They're pretty much just like cuckoos, except skeletal. Also, I highly recommend not attacking them. But yeah, that fox-headed guy, that is a thief. He will try to run into you and then try and steal your items. So, you know, be careful. Given our current equipment, I feel like we'd be able to clear the dungeon of this area. But that would also be really tricky because the enemies around here do so much damage. And that would be a real pain to us. I mean, we have the cane to burn us. We can use that to protect us in some areas. We got a shop in here, so we can pick up some stuff. Actually, we do not have a shield, so it might be a good idea to pick one up. Yeah, we can just buy a shield, and we have that. So that will protect us from some projectiles, like the arrows fired from some enemies, as well as the rocks spit out from the Octoroks. However, it's not going to protect us from everything. For example, the Zoras will spit out fireballs, and so that's not going to be able to protect us from those. You need another item in order to be able to resist those attacks. But anyway, over here we're just pounding these nipples into the ground, turning them from outies to innies, And that opens up a staircase down here. And that takes us to the Cane of Samaria. So this is an important item for being able to access some of the later dungeons in the Dark World. So it is really good we picked that up. With that, we'll be able to make progress in Misery Mire as well as Turtle Rock. So that gives us a lot of different things for us to do now. Woo! That's good. So yeah, it's going to be a while before we access some of the other areas of the Dark World. Just want to explore this area for now. Especially because we should be able to finish up everything we can do in the Village of Outcasts in this run. It's also pretty funny because this area was also one of the earliest dungeons I did back in my Twitch playthrough for this. We got some bombs from that chest. So yeah, what else can we find around here in the village? Ooh, there's a fairy. Want that for your delicious magical power. Yeah, there's a common joke throughout the Zelda fan base that instead of the fairies using their magic to restore your health, Link just eats the fairies. They're just such a morbid joke, but God, I love it. Ooh, over here, this house could be useful to us. So over here, we are able to acquire at least one important item from a chest here. Alright, we managed to obtain the item there very quickly. So you have the ability to pay for access to 2 of the chests in that house, and we were lucky enough to grab the main item we could get there, which was a piece of heart. Yeah, even in the vanilla game, you get a piece of heart there. Alright, looking at our current options here, we should be able to do this dungeon. I'm just a little worried because of our current health, but we could totally knock this area out. Alright, so what we need to do to access the dungeon here, just pull on the pitchfork of this gargoyle statue, and that opens up the way to the Thieves' Hideout. This is a very tricky dungeon. Compared to the dungeons you find in the Light World, the Dark World dungeons are very difficult. The challenges here are definitely a step above everything we have seen in this game up to this point. The enemies here are going to be much more dangerous, the layouts of these areas are more complicated. So yeah, these dungeons are really going to test your abilities here. Thankfully, I played for enough of this game that we should have a pretty easy time going through here. Especially because this was the dungeon that I last saw Masay playing when she was doing this yesterday, so we should have a pretty good time getting through here. So here in the Thieves' Hideout, there's definitely a lot of stuff we want to try and get here. This first section of the dungeon, it's kind of a maze with a bunch of different things you can find around 4 floors. So it's divided up into 4 sections, and you want to look all over the place for the items you can obtain. It's very nice that we have the sword beam from our Master Sword, so we should be able to handle most of the threats around here. So if you see those sparkles that pop up in a few areas, you want to watch out for those, because hitting that will turn you into a form that leaves you vulnerable and unable to use your sword. So yeah, the thing with the Dark World lore-wise is that it changes you. It will change your form based on the qualities of your heart. And in the case of Link, since he's honestly kind of a pacifist and wasn't really meant to be a warrior, in the Dark World, he takes the form of a rabbit, which I find kind of interesting, lore-wise. Okay, we got this wall over here we can bomb to access this area. And let's see what we can find up here. There's another crack wall we can get here. And I forget if that leads into anything. Oh, that takes us up here. So it shows a little bit about what we can expect to find here. Also, yeah, those lizard-headed guys around here, they're kind of exclusive to this dungeon. You won't find them anywhere else. They can be pretty nasty. Especially the red ones, because they can shoot fireballs. And you know, fireballs are gonna hurt ya. Let's head over this way. So I do like the layout of this area, how we got 2 different floors that we have to try to... Ah! I've been turned into a stall robe. So yeah, the sparkles will turn you into a form that is vulnerable and unable to use weapons. So in the case for my whiz robe, I got turned into a stall robe, which is basically just a skeletal whiz robe. Not much else to it. So what we want to do is go through that door. However, I want to make sure that we grab all the chests we can in this first area. As this section of the map, yeah, there's definitely a few tricky pathways through here. And especially in this dungeon, you want to make sure you grab as much as you can. So this area can really test your abilities. I just want to head down here. Careful to avoid the fire, because that will hurt, obviously. If we go down here, so this should take us to an area with that chest. Wow, this is a nice chest. Sorry, I had to make that Link's Awakening reference. Such a funny throwaway line they do. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the Zelda series. Like, my first game I ever played was Link's Awakening, and around the time I got that game, my family also got the official strategy guides for both Ocarina of Time and A Link to the Past. So that was a very good find that we were able to get. Just 2 very excellent strategy guides for being able to learn as much as we can about these games. But we really didn't have too many Nintendo consoles back in the day, so obviously we didn't get an opportunity to play those games until much later. I mean, we did have an NES, but I didn't pick up A Link to the Past until years later. And in fact, the first version of this game that I played was the Game Boy Advance remake of this game, which honestly is a pretty fun version of the game. Just, you know, if you don't want to hear Link's high-pitched crying from some of the games that released around that time, then you're probably not going to have the best time with it. But besides that, it's still a good, decent port of the game. So over here, if we head up into this chamber, there's not much to it at the moment. Alright, we'll just move on for the rest of this area. But yeah, the Thieves' Hideout, this area is quite complicated. And the big solution to this area, there's definitely a pretty interesting puzzle with this place that is certainly very iconic within this series. If you are well acquainted with this game, you probably already know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to save the surprise. And this area is tricky. We got these amoeba guys that will shoot their nucleuses out, and you want to attack the nucleus when it's outside the main body. Then, of course, we got those skull guys with the fireballs around them. Those are called anti-fairies. You want to watch out for them, because getting hit by them will not only do damage, but will also drain you of your magic if you get hit. So definitely watch out for these guys, especially if you're like me and have a lot of items. Okay, we need a key here. There we go. So this area, we got some blade traps that we need to worry about. So we are able to position these traps in the right spot. We can totally avoid having to worry about these guys. And then we can just move on forward. Also, hitting that crystal is important for raising and lowering certain platforms. A unique item is held by the Kakariko Village Elder. Oh, so we'll definitely want to remember that for later. Okay, so for this floor, we're actually going to need to hit that switch in order to do this. Alright, so I hit you. Ow. Yeah, we're going to take a little bit of a beating here, but don't worry. We have a fairy, we have a potion. We should be able to handle anything this game throws at us here. We can stock up on some more supplies there. And then over here, we got these lizards that are going to run around this floor. Definitely watch out for them, because they are deceptively very tough. They will do a lot of damage to you if you let them hit you. God. Alright, so if we go over here, some more lizards we gotta worry about. So that chest had a piece of heart. That's good. So what I'm doing here is I'm going with a spin attack to deal with enemies. So that is a very nice technique, because the spin attack will do more damage compared to a regular attack. And over here is an area that's associated with the main puzzle of this dungeon. We want to bomb that section of the floor, which will let some of the light shining through that window down into the lower levels of this dungeon. So that is going to be quite useful to us if we're going to fully complete this area. Alright, with that taken care of. Also, I like how the keys in the Dark World, it's just an eyeball with bat wings. Like, that is clever. Alright, we'll hit that. So let the spikes pass. Yeah. Alright, I think... No. Alright, I kept forgetting exactly how we're supposed to go about this. I want to hit that. Okay, we died, but don't worry. We have a fairy. So she will just replenish our health, and we're good to go. Yeah, gotta be careful when exploring this place, for a number of reasons. Because the enemies here can be really brutal. Pretty much everything in the Dark World should be doing at least 2 hearts of damage until we get some better equipment to protect ourselves. So definitely remember that as you're going through this area. Enemies here hurt. Alright, we're able to hit that switch there, which could open up a shortcut for us later. But what we want to do is head down into the basement here. So this is the lowest level of the dungeon, which is also going to be necessary for accessing the big boss of this area. So we can grab our health there. So I think that's everything we need here. We can also pick up this big block. Believe it or not, you don't need the Titan's Mitt to lift that. You just need the regular Power Glove. So those jellyfish guys are called Beery. Well, the big ones are called Bari. The little ones are Beery. And it seems like we're going to need a... Alright, we're gonna keep that fairy now that we have the butterfly net. We just catch fairies with them. I've always liked how in the Fairly Odd Parents show, butterfly nets were like the big weakness to all fairies. Like, they can't even use their magic to get past the butterfly net. I always found that very funny in that show. So we're still gonna need a key here, but thankfully I think we're gonna get one really soon. So thanks to us having the big key, which is necessary to even access this area, we're able to open up these cells where, look who it is! It's one of the maidens that's been cast into the Dark World by Ganon. What you doing here? Well, we gotta get her out of this place, and now that we have the key to this area, we can grab one of the items that we can get here. We're also gonna want to have the hammer for this one. It is necessary if we want to get every collectible in this area. But accessing the big chest here, we got a piece of heart. Alright, so that's going to give us more life. That's always good, especially with a boss that we're going to be fighting here. Alright, so head up to the north, and we should be good. Actually, looking at our health, we have 8 hearts. That's kind of low considering the difficulty of this dungeon, but we should be fine. We have plenty of resources to be able to mitigate damage, so we'll be fine. Alright, so for here, we basically run through everything. You may have noticed on the bottom floor, there's one room we haven't gone into. Yeah, there's nothing of importance we need in that floor, so don't even worry about it. So what we want to do is step forward. Also, for security, I'm going to equip the Cane of Burna before we go forward, because this will help us deal with damage. So now we step into the light with the maiden. She's like, sausage is the worst! Turns out she's not a girl after all. She is Blind, the boss of this dungeon. So I'm going to use the Cane of Burna in order to generate a barrier protecting me from damage. client here is just going to fly around. He's going to shoot his heads at us, which will shoot fireballs. And we need to strike blind in the head to defeat him. Okay, we have a fairy, so we're able to take at least one hit from this guy. And we have our blue potion, so we're going to be good. There is nothing blind can do to stop us here. Wow, wow, wow. We're going to take the hit here, have our fairy replenish our health. And there we go. Yeah, this fight can be a lot your first time just because of all the projectiles coming at you. But we have the level 2 sword. We have plenty of items. Ooh, the Quake Medallion. So that is an item that can unleash damage against all enemies on the screen. Could be quite useful. But with that, we managed to obtain the second of these crystals scattered throughout Hyrule. And with that, we also saved the maiden that was being held captive by Blind. So that was very good. And given the current time we have here, I think that's actually where we're going to end this session here. So we managed to get a lot done in our first session. We already have the level 3 sword. We were able to explore the Dark World thanks to getting the Moon Pearl. We have the Titan's Mitt. And we got a lot of good items that are going to be useful for continuing this adventure. So yeah, I think that is going to do it for this session. This was a really good session. I think we are off to a really good start here. And I am really excited to play more of The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past here. So thank you for joining me in this first session. It has been a blast. Next time, we'll be seeing what else we can find around both the light and dark worlds. Until next time, have a good day, and take care, everyone!